Let me tell you something that your company's leadership is probably never going to tell you. Being really, really good at your job is not what actually gets you promoted. I know that kind of feels wrong. It might even make you a little angry hearing it because you've been putting in the work. You've been delivering, you've been showing up early, staying up late, saying yes to every project and every task, and doing everything that you were told was going to get you to the next level. And still, you're stuck. And what's so maddening about this is that you can probably see people around you moving faster, moving to that next level that you know, don't work as hard as you. Or maybe they're not even as good as you. And yet you can't figure out what's missing. I know that feeling intimately. And I want to tell you exactly what's happening. Because once I understood it, everything changed. The reason high performers don't get promoted, the real reason, the one nobody is saying out loud, is that the same patterns that made you a high performer are now the exact patterns that are keeping you or holding you back from the next level. The things that you did to get here are now the things that are getting in your way. Because here's what happened. At some point in your career, probably early on, you figured out a set of strategies that work. Work harder than everyone else. Never show weakness. Never ask for help. Never ask stupid questions. Be indispensable. Be perfect. Be so good that no one can question whether you belong. And those strategies worked. They got you results. They got you recognition, and they got you to where you are now. But leadership does not reward those strategies. They reward something completely different. And if you haven't made that internal shift, if you're still running on the same old patterns, you're going to keep hitting that same ceiling no matter how hard you work. I mean, I lived this exact thing for almost a decade before I understood what was happening. So today, I want to break it down for you. Let's talk about what these patterns actually look like. Because they're sneaky. They don't look like what you would think self-sabotage looks like. They look like professionalism. They look like dedication. They look like the exact type of employee that any company would want until they don't. First one is overworking. This one I see pretty commonly, and it's the one that I live the hardest. That really ruined my health, my physical health, and my mental health, as well as it led me to burnout. But in my head, I was thinking 50, 60, 70-hour weeks. I'm the first one in, I'm the last one out. Answering emails at midnight. Never saying no. This is what's going to get me those next role. This is what's going to get me to that next level. And here's the thing. For a while, it actually works. People are impressed by your work ethic. They love that you're able to produce and get the thing in the timeline, in that really short timeline that they have, and that you don't have an issue working that hard to make sure that the project is successful because you get results. But at some point, leadership stops seeing a high performer and they start seeing someone who can't delegate, someone who can't prioritize, someone who can't operate at a strategic level. They start seeing someone who's really good at getting the work done, but not someone who can lead others, who they can trust leading others and getting the work done for them. And the deeper truth, the one that took me a really, really long time to admit to myself, was that I wasn't saying yes to everything so that I can get to that next level. I wasn't overworking because I was being forced to do all of these projects. I was overworking. I was taking on too much for myself because it was the only way that I could prove that I deserved to be there. If I wasn't exhausted, I hadn't earned my seat. And that's not work ethic. That's a wound. Next one I see a lot is perfectionism. Perfectionism looks like high standards. And in some ways it is, right? Quality is important. Putting the time, the effort, the delicacy into something to build a good quality project is important. But it also looks like it's taking you 3 times as long to produce something as someone else, because you're incapable of moving forward unless something is flawless. It also looks like being unable to make decisions unless you have every single piece of the information available to you. It looks like being afraid to get it wrong, therefore you delay something rather than making a decision. Leadership requires decisiveness. It requires being comfortable with imperfect information and moving forward anyway. Perfectionism, when it comes from fear, when it comes from a place of if I'm not perfect, I'm not worthy, makes getting to that next level impossible. The next thing that I see a lot is shrinking yourself, not speaking up in meetings, even when you have something valuable to say. And the easiest way for you to speak up might be by framing your idea in a question rather than a confident, decisive thought or opinion. Prefacing everything with, I might be wrong, but, or this might be my ignorance, but I still use that one. And this helps you make yourself seem more junior than you actually are. Because for some reason, you're still waiting for that permission to take up space. This one might feel a little more invisible to notice, but leadership notices. Getting to that next level requires you not doing this to yourself. Because what they see is someone not believing in their own ideas. And if you don't believe in them, why should they? I recently asked for some feedback from someone more junior than me asking, hey, when I'm presenting something, I get interrupted a lot. Why do you think that is? What do you hear? And she goes, sometimes you frame things as asking a question. And so you don't sound as secure in yourself. I thought I no longer did that. But apparently, even in spaces where I have the title, I'm still doing that to myself. And that's a wound that I'm still working on every single day. Another big one for me is needing constant validation, checking in constantly with your boss or with your colleague to make sure you're in the right direction, needing reassurance that you're good at your job. It looks like you being a little bit devastated every time you're given feedback in a way that's almost disproportionate to the feedback that you're given because you're looking for validation from that person in the authority position. And so when you're not giving it, it's devastating. This one can be really uncomfortable to admit because it comes from such a vulnerable place. And every time it shows up at work, every time you ask someone to read over that email that you need to send or to look over that work that you produced, it shows how insecure you are. And it makes it hard for leadership to trust you with more autonomy. There is a time and place where you potentially need someone to give you feedback on something you're doing. But when it's this constant need for validation, when you can't even send an email without that validating, yes, that looks good, that's when it's holding you back. Sometimes, this is what I do. When I'm pretty sure that that email is structured correctly, that what I'm asking for is phrased correctly, but I'm still afraid of how the message is going to be taken, I kind of just close my eyes and send it. Tell myself to be brave, that whatever response is going to happen, I can deal with it. Nothing's going to implode or explode. Okay, but here's the critical thing that I want you to understand. None of these are character flaws. I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and we think this is our personality, this is who we are, this is my character, I can't do anything about it. But that's not true. These are the patterns or the strategies that you learned to survive, that you learned to move in the world. Probably from circumstances that had absolutely nothing to do with your career. But they were the ones that kept you safe. They helped you navigate a world that felt uncertain or perhaps threatening. But now they're running your professional life because they're all on autopilot, quietly keeping you from the things that you worked so hard for. So what do you actually do about this? The first step, the step that no one likes because it requires an uncomfortable level of vulnerability of looking at yourself in the mirror, is identifying which of these patterns is yours. And you have to get specific about it. You have to get specific, honest, and vulnerable with yourself. Where does this behavioral pattern show up? When does it get triggered? What is the situation that triggers that behavioral pattern from showing up? And what does it cost you, right? If that lack of authority in your voice, if that need of validation keeps showing up, what is it costing you in your professional life? For me, it's costing me the respect of my peers. It's costing me the lack of wanting to follow me as a leader from my team, right? Every time I do this, I break a little trust in people. And the reason you need to identify it is because we cannot fix what we cannot see. You cannot change what you don't know needs changing. Most of us have been so focused on the external, the skills, the projects, the relationships, even the leadership, the communication skills, that we never actually look directly at ourselves. And then, once you finally see it, start making a different choice. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen perfectly. Sometimes you're going to be really proud because you did it, and sometimes you're going to feel like you're going backwards because you failed at addressing it. But consciously and repeatedly, consistent practice with a lot of self-compassion, because you're essentially rewiring your brain, rewiring the patterns that have been running for years. This will help you improve. This will help you transform your career. What I can tell you is that the moment that I stopped overworking to prove my worth, the moment that I started seeing my own value, and then started working from a genuine place of confidence out of that value, was the moment that everything shifted for me. I mean, it got to a point where I had to make a decision to take a step back instead of continuing to accept those opportunities. Somehow, I stopped fighting for promotions, and they still happened very often. Sometimes it felt like too often. And it wasn't because anything externally changed. It was because I changed. If you're watching this and you're recognizing yourself in any of these patterns, good. That recognition is the beginning of everything. The next step is understanding where those patterns come from and how to start addressing them. And I mean addressing them at the root rather than trying to do it surface level by learning communication skills and leadership skills and all of these skills, which you do need, by the way. But you will never be able to become so competent in them if you don't address the root cause first. I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.